Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us for the last Mapping Melbourne event of, well, not just of the year, but ever. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're streaming to you live from the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri and Boon Wurrung peoples of the Kulin Nations, but we're presenting for you a lot of works from a whole range of lands across the continent that we know as Australia, ranging the lands of the Gadigal and the Ngambri up to the Whadjuk Noongar, and further afield. I'd like to acknowledge elders, past, present, and emerging, and I'd like to extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers who may be tuning in this evening. Sovereignty was never ceded, and the ramifications and horrors and pains of colonization continue to this day. And I think it's important that we confront that on a daily basis and reflect on it and address it where we can. So it is a Thursday evening, a quick erratum that at yesterday's Mapping Melbourne watch party, I said that it was a Thursday evening. It was not. Today is a Thursday evening. I will be joined by a whole range of artists. It's a very exciting one, a very big one today. And just like every other Mapping Melbourne watch party that we've had this year, I'd like to thank our funding partners, City of Melbourne, Creative Victoria, and the Australia Council for letting us make work and hold events like this. My name is Adolfo Aranjuez. I am a writer, editor, dancer, and sneaky Mapping Melbourne artist. I keep plugging my own work, but it's still on the website, so you can enjoy it at your leisure. But today is not about me. Today is about two incredible suites of work. I will be speaking to the artists, and you can enjoy their work shortly. But first up, let us bring to the screen the founder and editor of Liminal, Leah Jing McIntosh, also one of my dearest friends. Hello, Leah.
Hey, Adolfo. How you doing?
I am good. How you doing? How you doing? So this is going to be an interesting experiment for us because you're going to be enjoying my professional voice. This is not how I chat casually, everybody. Surprise, surprise. This is my host voice. But let's talk about Liminal via you. And, you know, I've been around since Liminal's inception from, you know, the germ of an idea from 2016 to, you know, this behemoth that it is now. But for those who, for whatever reason, don't know what Liminal is, could you tell the audience about Liminal? Its, you know, its goals, its principles, its aims, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, no worries. So as you just mentioned, I founded Liminal in 2016 in response to a lack of Asian Australian representation in the arts and media. And I just really wanted to see and to hear from Asian Australian artists on their own terms, because at that point, and even still now, I think if we are represented at all, so often we are not the ones representing ourselves. So since 2017, we've published over 160 interviews with Asian Australians. We've made books, commissioned art, comics, writing, exhibited work, programmed events and poetry readings for community. I mean, when we're not under the duress of a global pandemic. I have poetry readings. We also collaborate with organizations such as Multicultural Arts Vic. And I would just like to say here, this is our fourth and our final Mapping Melbourne, and it has been just so wonderful to grow with this festival, and especially to work with Freya, who used every trick in her producer bag to support our projects and our visions. And I just don't think we would be the same without this incredibly generative partnership and support. So thank you to Multicultural Arts Vic and to Freya, to Veronica and Sneha in particular. It's such a joy to work with you guys.
Such wonderful sentiments. I probably should offer a disclaimer here that because people probably know and they're probably thinking it, so I'll say it. I'll get ahead of the curve. I am, yes, part of the Liminal editorial team, but there is no bias, and I'm not being easy on Leah here. And speaking of, I'm going hard on you now with the second question. So you're premiering tonight the Time series, which is the 6th chapbook that you've produced, I believe. And obviously Time, as we've experienced through the recent year and a half that we've had, Time is perennially fascinating, and it's quite profound. It can really alter our experience of ourselves and each other. But what inspired you to produce the Time series?
I think you really do say it all. I'm really interested in the different ways we experience time, and especially last year, where it was so intense at some points and then so fluid in others. I just, as an editor and as someone who loves to read and consume art, I was just interested in to see how other people experienced it, both within the murkiness of last year, but just in general. So it's quite a broad and an overarching theme, but in that regards, I think for artists of color especially, sometimes we're asked to write about very specific and very well-trodden paths of things, and I'm really interested in asking big picture questions that white artists get asked about, love or death or time. And that was kind of the intervention here, specifically with just a very something that affects us all.
And you've certainly put together an amazing range of works here. Obviously, I get inside access to these things before they premiered, and I enjoyed every single piece. But so now maybe just quickly, could you talk us through how you put the series together? I know that you co-edited it with others on the Liminal editorial team. But even beyond that, did you give each contributor a specific angle or way into time as a concept, for example?
Yeah, so it's a little boring, but I'll walk you through it. So Adalia Nash Hussain and Sher Tan and I are all editors for Liminal. And when we do a big project like this, we have a meeting and we talk through themes. That's how we came up with time. And then we kind of try to match it with artists who we're really interested in working with. And if those two things click together, then we go ahead and invite them to make some artwork around the theme. And I am a really big fan of the big theme. So we don't really give specific briefs because Liminal is really for experimentation. And I like to let artists make the kind of art that they would like to make. As I said before, we're so often wedged into stereotypes and conceptions of who we should be and in the everyday. So why not allow for movement in one's own art? But yeah, so we have a selection of fiction, poetry, comics, an essay from some of the most talented Asian Australian artists, or just artists working today. And I'm really proud of this series, and I hope everyone can enjoy it.
You really should be proud of it. And we will be hearing from 6 of those artists now. Everybody enjoy the Time series, which is officially launched.
Hi, I'm Lee Lai, and this is my comic for Liminal's Time series. It's called An Interweaving. Not to be too sentimental, but, well, something did happen when I moved my life into a different time zone. Night takes on a whole new texture, when so many of the people living in my heart are, in that moment, waking up and starting their days. It's not quite a splitting of the self, no. Maybe something more like an interweaving. Maybe this is what science fiction writers are prodding at, with their stories of folks in love, living in parallel universes, existing in synchronicity, but also at totally different frequencies at any one moment. It is kind of existential for sure, but also kind of lovely. Maybe this is what it's like to be mildly haunted. Is it a decision? I don't know. Like to shed that awareness of the other side and what's happening over there? It must be. People who've been doing this shit forever, picking up and going elsewhere. Surely they don't live their whole damn lives going to bed each night with the sun reaching its midday peak inside them. Maybe you reach a point where you just make a decision to pull that blind down. Maybe it becomes too tiring. I sure hope not.
Hi, I'm Shirley Lay, and I'll be reading an excerpt from Asian, Don't Raisin. I was waiting outside Bangkok Bites in Newtown. At the traffic lights opposite, a group of young white men in artfully crumpled linen shirts were huddled under an umbrella about to cross the road. Poor dudes. That none of them knew the privilege of having a Viet mother who would iron out all of the creases in those shirts. I was looking for a man who had identified himself on Tinder as John. Some East Asian, judging by how pale he was, 29 years old and 182 centimeters tall. Extra details on his bio were coffee, burgers, food, drink. Obs a Taurus. John arrived kicking the rainwater off his brown leather Lacoste sneakers. It was the first time we'd seen each other IRL after chatting for a week. From those conversations, I gathered that his hobbies mostly involved eating and drinking. He considered pies, spring rolls, and barbecue pork buns burger-adjacent foods. His stance on coffee was more conservative. Tea was for pussies. John seemed harmless enough, and I was lonely. Whoa, you're so not 26. You look 21. The force of his hug told me that this was a compliment. It also told me that his ratio of arm to leg day during the week was probably 2-to-1. Raindrops sparkled in the comb of his black hair, and there was a pearlized glow to his face that hinted at a rigorous skincare routine. It made me think of the main character in the opening sequence of American Psycho. Tilting his head upwards, he gazed at the sign hanging above the front door of the restaurant, which was called Bangkok Bites. I thought you said we were going to a Thai restaurant? The sharp bridge of his nose caught the sign's neon red glow, spreading across the high planes of his cheekbones. I spied a few tiny grey hairs poking out between the fades on the side of his head. I assured him that the restaurant could be reasonably expected to serve Thai food and that Bangkok was the capital of Thailand. Are you sure, babe? I'm going to Google that, and if you're wrong, you owe me a kiss. He accentuated his threat with a light punch to my left arm. I felt the ridges of his knuckles through the chiffon of my blouse. We stood in line. He wrapped an arm around my waist and pulled me in so that our hips were touching. My body hung against his like a tumor. I wondered if he knew what the capital city of Vietnam was and whether I had the right to be offended if he didn't. After all, I'd never even been to Hanoi. Babe, how old do you think I look? John grinned like a game show host, and I caught a whiff of Listerine. He fixed his gaze on me. I pretended to focus on a French bulldog who had just waddled out of the bookshop next door. It had a yellow raincoat fastened around its banh mi body. I was hopeless at telling people's ages. This guy possessed the self-grooming capabilities of a vampire, but acted like a 15-year-old who spends his time watching Hollywood movies like The Hangover. How old would that make him? Really?
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Tan. I'm joining you today from Wajak Noongar land. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging on this land and also on the lands where this video is going to be broadcast. I'm reading for you an abridged version of my story for Liminal's Time series. It's inspired by the poem Waiting for Happiness by Naomi Stone, and my piece is titled The Long Quiet. Some days you simply vanish, sometime after you scoop fresh sand for me or after you pour my biscuits. I'll be licking crumbs from my maw, tonguing myself clean, and then, oh, the house has sighed into a new shape, your smell quieting. And perhaps you did call goodbye to me. Perhaps the lock flexed. Perhaps you were still perturbed from when I stepped across the reluctant landscape of your body and breathed in your sleeping face. But, well, perhaps love is a spectrum of irritation. Perhaps love is rubbing you with the pink crack of my mouth. Perhaps love is a sneeze. I jostle my bells, walk ting-ting-ting through the corridor. I watch the front door as if I could re-hear and re-smell you leaving. And then, well, I forget about you for a bit. The outside is clamoring with cicada and butterfly and bird, and sometimes I want to be there, but that is not to say that in here, the warm, bristling vessel of my own body isn't perfect. This is satisfactory, my spine rolling on the cold tiles, my tail curling around a thought and flicking it away. I visit every single corner of furniture and sniff it twice and slick my cheek against it. And if it's a particularly great corner, I'll slick firm enough to peel my jowl back gently to the gum. This is the way to honor a great corner. Things are always succumbing. Our shelves of books bowing in the middle, lengths of twine stretched across paintings' backs thinning on the nail. The fridge magnet that clasped the wedding invitation sliding floorward. You, collecting creases in your neck like the rings of old tea inside a mug. How beautiful it is not to disappear from the world alone. I am not a thing like these things. I am not the astonished agony of a fly caught between the curtain and the window, thrashing against glass, not the dead leaves keeling off your ficus. I am brighter than blood, more robust than these dune midges flying too close to the sundew's limbs. I twist my body out of trouble, I spring like a cunning trap. Everywhere I shed brilliant fibers, fastening like spores to cushion and carpet and curtain. They assure me of my eternity in this place, laced forever with my scent. I attend my favourite corner again, the dining table's corner, furthest from the window. I must stand on a chair to reach it, can only touch it when the chair is tucked under the table and angled just so. Its walnut edge is beveled, buffed smooth by my repeated honourings, the grain of the wood as fine as the stacked leaves of a book. That same singed smell, a turning to ash smell, tempered by the oil of your fingertips, the snag of clothes, old breakfasts, impatient sponges, my own dander nestled in the crevice. In the long quiet, the muscles of the house lengthen, twigs snap on the roof. I rest on this chair beneath my favourite corner and make my body into a bowl of sleep. I cradle it all within my curvilinear self, the sum of the house's little succumbings, the stitches of upholstery slackening, enamel peeling, carpets exposing nerves, fractures increasing on tiles, seats of chairs, including this one, buckling. My dreams caress them, the lagging clock hand, biscuits softening beneath feeble cardboard tabs, the lost grain of rice that will one day be caught in the broom's sweep, switches that will roll out of their sockets, bar of soap rubbed to a sliver, all these things conceding and conceding. Plants archive sunlight. Old scratch marks on cupboards and chair legs glimmer, incandescent seams of some rare and precious mineral. When I sleep, I am telling this body that it is good, that it deserves 1,000 great corners to slick. I dream of morsels and gravy. I dream of a panic of feathers under claw. I dream of stretching my spine and then I do it. Yawn, citadel of teeth. I dream of the midgie drowned in my water bowl. When an insect falls from a height, there is no drastic alteration to their essential properties. They will hit solid ground in an unbroken scramble of limbs. When I fall from a height, my descent is controlled. My body turns to elastic. My landing is tidy and entirely intentional. But you, there are far too many bits of you that crack, that spill. You are so large with vulnerabilities, unscaffolded by the brilliant instincts that preserve my own survival, your blood sleeved in the thinnest and slowest skin. When I'm worried about you, I return to my favorite corner. I honor it again and again. Something about the way a corner nicks you, indents you with its little pain. Something about the way it whisks soft, tiny shards of you. Something about the way it signals the borders of its thingness. Corners are not thoroughfares or portals. They are not openings or possibilities. They are a culmination, a consensus of trajectories. When I am with you, I give up some of my eternity. I skim off a little bit of it, peel it back to the gum, so that the two of us may culminate. A fixed point, the best and most perfect corner, conceding to the apex of ourselves. I anticipate but do not wait for the sun to strike the floorboards, the fidget of the key in the lock, breaking the long quiet with your noisy pigment, new rhythms of odor. You'll fumble out of your shoes and I'll hoist my tail and come ting, ting, ting to meet you, zigzagging, brushing my flank across all the lively corners, each new hour thrashing into astonished existence. And did you know there is a corner high above us, a pristine corner, one which has not yet collected one flake nor hair of ourselves, no skerrick of sweat, no whisker, no stitch of saliva, a corner whose little pain we've yet to feel. Lift your face to it.
Hello, my name's Sunita Peris-da-Costa. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Sovereignty was never ceded. It always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. I'm reading a piece today called Line in the Sand. The moon is very faint tonight, in its final quarter, but it is still possible to see the tide high coming in and ripples of black water as the waves break one by one on the shore. Inevitably, the line in the sand will disappear, whether now or tomorrow when the seagulls descend or the children race over in their eagerness to get started on their sandcastles. The man who has drawn it is himself now moving away, walking toward his old beach shack to prepare his evening meal. Some mussels and bread, he thinks, and one of the bottles of stout his neighbours had given him in exchange for a gift of smoked fish some days ago. In one hand he holds a piece of driftwood he has collected, which he may whittle into something later in the evening. When all the things of the day, his dinner plate and fork, his tackle and rod, his clothes, which he has left in a heap on the bedroom floor, have been put away, he will climb the stairs to the small attic workbench and begin to sculpt the timber. Mostly the figures he makes are of naiads, sea nymphs, mermaids even, water creatures that nevertheless bear the same countenance, the same earthy features of a woman, real and familiar, whom he knew long ago. Although the calendars that hang in the house of the man who has drawn the line in the sand are outdated, from bygone eras, and while the clocks tick without any particular urgency, he has a sense of time, of evolution. Lately, looking at his own hands as he works, he catches sight of the veins, which are prominent, and the tanned, wrinkled skin. He seems to perceive all the things which have passed through them, all the things they have held, as well as those of which he has let go. At such moments, he is apt to recall the face of the woman whose features he has etched over and over, and begun to wonder, were they to ever meet again, would she even recognize him? Blowing away the sawdust, he has studied the details and contours of his workmanship, only to find himself moved less by the likeness it describes than the light streaming through the open window. And abandoning his tools, his materials, he has stood up to contemplate the canopy of northern stars and gazed at the decisive position of Cassiopeia. The sky is again cloudless, the firmament vast and clear. It may therefore be the same tonight, or it may be different, for all the reasons known to him and those he is destined to discover, so that when he lies down to sleep, it may well be the line in the sand, rather than her face, which he encounters in his dreams.
Hi, I'm Mia Nee, and this is my comic Appleseed from Liminal's Time series. This mine will solve Earth's energy crisis. The only catch, it's in space. June 6, 2044. Thinking strong for dinner, how does that sound? What? Commencing deceleration into Terran orbit. Relative onboard duration, 347 standard days. Current solar date, August 16th, 2056. Come on, Abby. Relative time difference, 7 years, 2 months, 21 days. Welcome home, Abigail Wong. You know I hate when you do that. Abby, Prime Minister has claimed that this is just what our economy needs. However, experts are concerned there may be a serious environmental and human toll. Ugh, turn that shit off. Abby, hey. Oh my god, Simone, hey. I didn't recognize you. Yeah, I figured. Sorry, I mean you're, 7 months. But look at you. You really haven't aged a day. I want to hear it. I don't. It's depressing as fuck. Like we haven't fucked up this planet enough. After that, David and I decided to tie the knot since legally it was the only way you could stay in the country. And we couldn't afford anything lavish, but that was alright. I mean, it's not like either of us really believed in the whole ritual or anything like that. Here, I'll show you a holo. It's not such a bad deal, really. You get to retire at 30 and never have to work another day in your life. It's weird. We used to talk about what it would mean, to have children at this point in history. Nah, no way. You fucking joking? So what changed? Just my biological clock, I guess. I don't know. I want to believe that it's still somehow worthwhile to bring life into this world. Maybe that's selfish. 7 times as slowly on that planet. I mean, by the time you're 30... Remember how we used to come here after school and watch the flying foxes? I think they're extinct now. That makes sense. Bum 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 bum. Seize your future today. There were more stars in the sky back then as well. Now you have to pay for that privilege. I mean, can you believe that shit? Not even the stars are free anymore. Like you're always a million miles away. I talk to you and it's like you're not even there. 1 more week of shore leave and then I'm off planet for another stint. Jesus, that is so fucked up. Shit. I'm sorry. Please don't leave me. It was really good to see you again. I'm not leaving you. You too. I'll see you in 8 years, I guess. We can't go on like this.
Hi, my name is Anupama Pilbrow, and right now I'm on the Gadigal country of the Eora Nation. Tonight I'll be reading a poem from my Time series poem. It's called Time is Neither Here Nor There poem. It is time for eating dinner, and I'm chopping the curly leaf kale to make some vegetable. The knife is both too sharp and too blunt, so that I'm cutting slow, fast, and ragged. And I cut deep into my thumb through the nail halfway in where the bone must be. I'm sure. And yes, of course, it's hurting a lot, but I wash it and putting a bandage on it so I can finish dinner. After eating, I'm cleaning up the pots and chopping board, and the bandage is getting wet in the washing up water. The wound is feeling painful, and I'm thinking, fine, I'll see how it is tomorrow. Again, it is getting wet when I'm washing my face, and again when I'm getting up in the night and having to wash my hands. Still, the wound is feeling sore and too wet. I sleep again, and in the morning I'm looking at the wound, which looks the same, only wrinkly, still too deep now. The nail is soft and white from the bandage, and I smell the wound. It smells okay like flesh. I'm keeping the wound clean and dry, not using that hand, wearing cling wrap and a plastic bag on it. I'm eating dry foods all day. I don't wash anything. I'm careful not even to shower because I want it to get dry and make a scab or protective covering. I'm passing some few days, living dry, eating dry, only wetting the wound by accident, and I open the bandage and have a look, and still the wound is all soft, and the nail still white and flexible, not the way that a nail should be. I'm starting to think something is wrong. This is not how I'm remembering previous wounds to heal. In these few days, there should be some changes. I should be seeing some healing, but it is still wet and too open. A week passes, and I'm back to living my life as normal, thinking if I live as normal, then the wound will heal as normal. Another week passes, and after a shower, I'm opening the bandage so I can apply an ointment and observe to see if there is any progress. I peel off the bandage, and still the wound is there and same as it has been. I'm smelling it, thinking, is there something wrong? Has it become infected? What's happening? Still it smells like wet bandages and ointment, and underneath the smell like wet flesh that hasn't dried in a long while. And all of this is also normal to me, but not normal, because it's taking far too long. I'm afraid now, and also becoming so angry at the thumb, feeling sick of this sloppy thumb, so useless for all the human needs I have, so clean and still not changing. And I think I will make you regret it, wound. You will be thinking twice now. You won't be so happy resting on your laurel thinking I'll do the work for you. And I'm wiping it along the sink thinking, yeah, you can have some dirt, you silly wound, eat some dirt. And I'm feeling reckless. I throw off my towel and racing the lip of the wound across the floor and plunging it down into the drain there in the center of the room, so I can wiggling it around where there is all dirt I cannot even see. I'm dressing myself in old clothes from the bottom of the laundry basket. I'm putting on my evening gloves over the unwashed wound, and I'm dancing around the room, pouring sour milk into the glove and a piece of rotting banana. I go out to the garden and plunge the wound, glove and all, into the earth until I'm feeling the dirt and soil and little wormy things starting to wriggle into the fabric of the glove and starting to nibble around the soft fraying edge of the wound. Every hour, I'm finding some new and filthy item to rub across the wound. I'm scraping off the dusty grease on the range hood and pushing it into the crease of the wound, and I find the hollowed carcass of some insect by the window, which I'm grinding into dust to anoint the wound. I'm finding a sludge in the fridge which looks ripe and exciting to feed the wound. It is growing hard and harder now, losing the wet and sloppy lip. I'm feeding it ashes from the corner of the oven, and I scrape off the dust on my bookcase. I'm taking lint from the dryer and teasing it over the edges of the wound like a cotton candy wig. The wound happily is accepting each gift of filth, and I'm feeling gleeful and free of all expectations to be the caretaker of the wound, and thinking the flesh can take care of itself. And each day, I'm feeding it worse and worse, washing with great joy as the skin is hardening and the nail becoming like diamond, and the fraying edges of the wound are closing in and knitting themselves together On the final day, the wound is open. I'm looking for a cocktail of grime to see it home. And I take the wound outside, where I can push it up under cars and swipe it around in the layer of muck, and hold it under a dripping vent, and crumble into it soggy mushrooms I find growing on a wooden telephone pole, until I'm finally hearing it sealing up completely with a quiet pop, and thinking of a fond goodbye to my warm and wet companion of so many weeks and months, and I'm going home to wash it all away. Thank you.
Ah, such riveting stories and meditations and provocations. I mean, really no bias. I know I'm on the Liminal team, but I wasn't part of the putting together of this series, and kudos to the editors of the series and the artists for these excellent, beautiful, brilliant visions. We're now moving on to the second half of this jam-packed night. Now, a quick invitation to you, audience. You can leave questions if you would like to in the little boxes that you're viewing from. We will see if we can slot them in. There's kind of a lot to get through this time around. So unlike usual, I'm not like, oh my God, I'd love to call out the audience. Not tonight. But, you know, if it's a good question, I will read it. We are moving to the Big Bow half, and we will be premiering a series of works under the banner of Medium Spicy 2. I'm joined by two members of Big Bow, Vivian Vo and Yo Chung. Hello, hello. How are we tonight?
Doing good. Doing good.
Great. Love this. Sorry about this like new spotlight that I've turned on. I was like, oh, it's getting dark. And now I feel like I'm like this weird, like anyway, it's fine. So Big Bow, you're responsible for, you know, quite an exciting range of, you know, events and projects, very cool. How did, you know, the two of you plus Angela come to work together, and what drives your projects?
Well, we are three very close friends, and we all met, I guess, kind of through the music industry, and we all do work in music. Music is a very big overlapping interest of ours, I think, and our tastes overlap a lot as well. Yeah, we all come from East Asian backgrounds, I guess, and we all have that same belief, like kind of drive to you know, I guess, work towards equality. Yeah.
We basically started Big Bow as a platform because we wanted to showcase and support other Asian Australian musicians, DJs, and artists like ourselves, and just give them an opportunity to, show off their work under Big Bow.
Well, you've definitely been doing that, so thank you for your amazing work, and we look forward to seeing more of it. So on that note of, you know, coming together, Medium Spicy 2, which is actually the second installment of obviously Medium Spicy, hence the name, which the first one came out in 2019, I believe. But yeah, so Medium Spicy 2 itself is also about, you know, coming together, about confluence. And in this project, what you've done is you've paired 3 sound artists with 3 visual artists. What was the thinking behind that curatorial decision? And how did you go about bringing together, you know, like selecting and pairing each duo?
We basically each took on a project, and each 3 of us chose a sound artist that we are just really enjoying this right now, or just emerging artists that we really wanted to showcase, and we allowed that sound artist to find a pairing of a visual artist that they really wanted to work with, and basically just create a work that would be under the theme of Medium Spicy, and they could read that however they wanted to.
And I guess it's also an evolution of what the previous Medium Spicy thing was because of, I guess, the virus last year. So we had to take it all online this year. So we adapted our ideas, I guess. Yeah.
And I guess the obvious question here, which must be raised, is Medium Spicy 2, the title obviously makes reference to food. And I mean, I guess, unless I'm wrong, Big Bow also is a reference to food. So what is it that has drawn you to thematically anchor this series specifically on, you know, this culinary concept?
I think we're pretty like shameless about the food of our culture, and we really love it. I mean, food is such a portal to someone's like soul. Well, for me, it is anyway. Like we all really love food. Me, Angela, and Vivian, and it's like there's a lot of food that like intersects between our three cultures. Like I'm Chinese Malaysian, Vivian's Vietnamese, and just Thai, and like all of those things. Like we enjoy each other's cuisines and stuff, and it's like, well, it's the thing that brings people together in a big way.
I think we decided on medium spicy because of it kind of intersects right in the middle of like being Asian Australian and just being in that middle realm, and medium spicy kind of hits both of those worlds.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you for your insights and, you know, behind the scenes views on the works. We are now going to premiere them, and I'm very excited to show the audience the first of them. It is by Ali Adriano and Tavis Pinnington. And yeah, enjoy.
Set up set up set up set up.
Hey, and joining us now is Ali. Hi, thank you so much for this amazing, really intense, kind of saturated, scintillating work. Could you maybe talk us through the stuff that's going on here? So conceptually, it's about a person going on a date, but with themselves. What was the thinking behind this concept of a self date?
Yeah, so pretty much the concept is, getting ready for a hot dinner date with yourself, and that pretty much being a Filipino femme getting ready for a date and having this sort of ritual of eating a feast of traditional Filipino desserts as a celebration of like heritage, sensuality, feminine sensuality, and pleasure.
And so I am of Filipino descent, so I speak the language also. And the two key words that you've used there are sarap, which means delicious, and mahal, which is love. What was, because you were in charge of the sound component of the work. So what drew you to pick those two words, or those two ideas of deliciousness and love?
Well, honestly, I don't know many Tagalog words or phrases. So out of like the 10 phrases, those were like the first things that I thought of. And I was like, oh, well, that's fitting. Let's just roll with that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's very opposite indeed. And there's definitely a sense of, like self-love, and, there's a love component to food as well. When you're eating, there's this kind of ecstasy or a communion that you get from it. So absolutely. And maybe just like as a final question, what was it like working with Tavis?
It was so good. I mean, like, it was so bizarre. Tav actually posted maybe a month prior to Big Bow hitting me up for this, a compilation sort of video, or like a montage video of his mum cooking like traditional Filipino cuisine, like adobo and whatnot. And so he was sort of on my radar, and I was like, oh, that's so cool that you're doing that. And then I've always wanted to work with Tav. I mean, A, because he's philo, and B, because he's just a really talented DP. And yeah, he was just sort of perfect. So yeah, and as soon as I messaged him, he was on board. So like, we're good friends. So yeah, worked out.
Well, from one philo to another philo, thank you for your amazing work. We are so excited to have it in the series and out in the world.
Pleasure.
Now we'll be premiering our second video for you this evening by Heiji Ma and Sydney Farry. A quick warning, there is some nudity in this one, and regardless, enjoy. Hey, and I'm joined now by Heiji Ma, the sound artist responsible for this electric, very, very scintillating work. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm very curious about this work's balance between, on the one hand, the kind of unashamed visceral quality. There's self-touching of close-ups of mouths, of saliva, but then on the other hand, it's kind of intruded on, or it clashes with industrial sounds, like kind of acidic lighting, glitchy effects, that kind of stuff. What's the thinking behind those, like that clashing between the visceral and the bodily and the industrial?
Well, we started off with the concept of the piece Meipi, which roughly translates to beautiful skin in Mandarin Chinese. And we started off wanting to explore kind of body in sensation and experience of that during isolation as well. So when I started off with the sound component of it, I started off with layering kind of visceral sounds of wetness and voice to capture kind of aspects of touch and sensation. And I'm an industrial and experimental music artist, and I use industrial sounds to kind of extend meaning within the piece. So I kind of use industrial sounds here to create a sort of intensity, and I feel like industrial music and sound often kind of demands attention, and it takes and creates kind of a different space. And I guess a space here is meant to be like an intimate and vulnerable space of self-exploration and sensation. Sydney did a video response to the work, and in Sydney's work she often uses the human figure and looks at notions of rawness and fleshiness. She reflected on themes of isolation during quarantine within the video, which seems very relevant considering 2020. And the entire video was actually filmed on a laptop or iPhone, and using a kind of video chat platform as well. So she wanted to use technology as a tool to explore communication. And she said that her work is a graphic demonstration of the powerful and intimate relationship between our bodies overlaid with elements of technology. So it's kind of a fictional landscape that's meant to be created here.
Yeah, well, definitely thematically relevant to, you know, if lockdown, the experience of lockdown is anything to go by, we've certainly, you know, have this much stronger relationship with technology. And, you know, some theorists would even say that humans are officially cyborgs now because we're quite, you know, connected to these technologies. Maybe just as a final question, how did you find the experience of, you know, working with a visual or video artist as a sound artist?
I found the experience it was actually kind of a challenging experience, mainly because I found because we were exploring bodies and the way that bodies are portrayed, I feel like portrayal of bodies in all aspects inherently has a kind of political undertone to it, because artists choose to emphasize, neglect, and focus on different aspects of identity and representation within what is shared as well. So within our exploration, I actually wanted to explore Asian bodies in a different way. I wanted to explore the way that femme bodies can be empowered to explore sensation by themselves. And Sydney and I actually had very different viewpoints regarding this representation of exploring sensation. And I feel like that point of difference was often actually due to our different sexualities, myself being queer and Sydney being heterosexual. And that kind of informed our way of wanting to communicate within both the sound, within my sound medium, but then all the way also through the representation of the body in the video medium as well. So in the process, I created the sound piece and Sydney created a response to that, but I provided feedback from Sydney's initial response because the video piece had a lot of what I saw as being heteronormative and sexualized aspects to the video. And in being able to have a dialogue and actually put in feedback, we were able to, I think, explore sensation as something that didn't have to be experienced with a man and a woman in that imagery. And I feel like that's quite important because that experience of sensation between a man and a woman is actually something that I personally don't identify with as well. So I found it a challenging process, but I think dialogue actually ended up being able to have open feedback we were able to kind of create a more an exploration of self and sensation. Yeah.
Well, we're all definitely grateful for, you know, this dialogue that you had, because now we have this very provocative, very provoking work. Yeah, so thank you so much for creating this work and for chatting with us now. So as a final piece, we'll be showing you the work by Michelle Nguyen and Grace Chierson, as well as the artists telling you what their thinking was behind the making of the piece. Enjoy.
Hello, I'm Michelle. Hey, I'm Grace. And yeah, we've been working together on this music video for Big Bow, interpreting the theme of medium spicy. And it's been a super interesting learning process. And yeah, I was super excited to share it with the world. Yeah, it was a quick process as well. And it was this sort of really organic way of working that we hadn't really done before. It was our second collaboration from the first work that we did with Signal last year. And yeah, just from that, I found that our styles really complemented each other, even though I'm a video artist and Michelle is a sound artist. But yeah, like we both work with glitch and sort of like the corruption of material through our work. And yeah, I think we created something really cool together. So our process approaching the theme of medium spicy was, like pretty experimental and generative. And I think like we were working off what each other was sort of making. And you started off with making something that's quite different to our end work.
Yeah, like I feel like for this project, I was caught up in trying to figure out what people were expecting of Asian music, and so I started off making this like happy poppy song, and it just wasn't working out because that's just not
really my jam,
Yeah.
to be honest. And it wasn't an authentic expression of an Asian Australian identity. And so I like completely changed it up and made something a bit more moody. And so, yeah, that's been a really interesting process to figure out an authentic expression free from what people expect of you.
I think you were also, well, we were both able to do that because we weren't working closely at all with any other artists or mentors, and we sort of were just left on our own to interpret Medium Spicy, and that was really freeing, but also
terrifying.
Yeah.
It was freeing because like we didn't have the pressures of expectations to conform your art to, and so yeah, you kind of just left to confront what you actually think and draw inspiration from each other to figure this out, really.
Yeah. And I think the end result is really, true to both of us, and it's sort of, well, our interpretation of Medium Spicy is it ended up quite abstract or experimental.
We were interpreting it through the idea of being caught between fast and slow in both the visuals and the sound, because it's kind of like being caught between two different cultures and finding your way and creating your own way in between the two, and navigating that tension between the two sides is where it gets really interesting, and that's the space in which we exist, really. Super interesting learning process. We had heaps of fun, and we hope you enjoy it too.
Thank you.
Oh, so bittersweet. With that, we bring Mapping Melbourne 2020-2021, but also Mapping Melbourne as a whole itself to a close. But you know what a journey it's been. It's been so beautiful, moving, the whole gamut of Asian creativity, from the pensive to the electric, contemplative, visceral. It's just been so beautiful. I think I would love to bring everyone back from this evening, just so we can say a quick farewell and a quick celebration. Look at these beautiful, that's the pose. Oh, whoops, wrong hand. Of everybody tonight. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening, for creating such beautiful works, for compiling, curating such works. I can't wait to see more of what you do, and I'm sure the audience is as well. A quick thank you as well to our funders, just once again, Creative Victoria, City of Melbourne, and the Australia Council for the Arts. I'd also like to give a quick thank you to Freya McFarlane, the producer of Mapping Melbourne for a whole 6 years, I believe. Is Freya around? That is Freya, everybody, the genius.
Hello.
The fairy, the bringer of... Hello, sister. Thank you as well to the other staff who made this happen from Multicultural Arts Victoria. We have Sneha and Christian. Hello. Sneha, thank you so much. Christian is the tech genius behind everything, queuing us all up. There he is. And of course, a big thank you. Of course, a big thank you as well to the Multicultural Arts Victoria team as a whole. Sorry, Freya, I cut you off. This is your moment. Please take it from me.
My moment. Sure. So thank you so much to Christian, Sneha. Thank you for making digital mapping possible, my co-producer in crime this year. Thank you, Adolfo, for hosting, Margot for hosting our December events, and all of the artists from this year and the past 8 years of mapping. Woo! Wild. End of an era. So thank you so much to everybody, and shout out to everybody who's ever been a part of any mappings ever.
Margot's in the house. Margot's in the audience. We see you. We would bring you in, if we could, as a fellow host. Well, thank you again, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you've enjoyed Mapping Melbourne in its entirety, and we look forward to seeing you all in the real world. Get outside. It's a full moon tonight. Have a good night.
Yes!